because we at ABAWT get to host alongside the amazing team at East Africa. Just for anyone that's new, I'd like to give you a very quick intro into ABAWT. ABAWT was launched by Mani Akwa in 2016. Hi, Mani. Let's see, what's going on here? Sorry about that. ABAWT stands for A Better Africa with Tech, and we aim to provide a platform that engages. Obviously, it's a community to really connect and network, discuss different things like startup ideas, but also brainstorm solutions to problems. But importantly, we want to obviously elevate each other by contributing to and learning from the African startup tech ecosystem, with the very main aim being to connect Europe and Africa and strengthen the startups in Africa through technology and just ultimately thrive together. We're based on 3 pillars. That includes obviously community building, as I just mentioned, followed by our mentorship program, and then our startup support consultancy. Our team is quite international. We're based in Berlin, but we have team members in the Netherlands, as well as ambassadors in Ghana and Nigeria. So if you are interested in connecting with us or just curious to find out more in general, please do not hesitate to get in touch. You've got the link to our site and social media channels all there on your screen, but we'll share it in the chat box as well. So yeah, do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. I'd like to now pass over to the attention to our co-host, Katarina, from Star Africa. She'll tell us a little bit about herself and what Star Africa does.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, and hi everyone from Rwanda. Yeah, my name is Katarina, and I run the Star Africa project here on the ground. And our mission is actually to increase the business relations between Germany and Rwanda with a strong focus on scientific entrepreneurship. So we want to actually sensitize and motivate German companies coming to Rwanda, opening their business here, but also find the right startups and companies from Rwanda to bring them to Germany. It's a 4-year project, and we are based, we have 2 teams. One team is based at the University of Koblenz in Germany at the Center for Entrepreneurship. And then here, our main project partner is the University of Rwanda and also the Center for Entrepreneurship here. And yeah, what we always want to emphasize, we are not a typical development cooperation project. It's actually a pilot by the German government. It's the first time they are doing this, and we are funded by the Ministry for Economic Affairs. So we always say our clear focus is on entrepreneurship, business and innovation, and yeah, to create this bridge between Germany and Rwanda. And one of my colleagues is also here, is actually moderating tonight, and that's Derek. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Katarina. Right, let's get into it. So during today's session, we'll focus on 3 young entrepreneurs in the diaspora that are exploring economic opportunities in their countries of origin by creating obviously businesses and startups, in particular how they're shaping and developing entrepreneurial spaces. And linking these to their country of linking their country of origin to their country of residence. The aim in this session is to showcase what's being done on the continent, what opportunities are available, and what the challenges and key drivers in the different African markets are that they're based in. So now that we've taken up so much of your time, I am delighted to finally introduce or allow our lovely speakers to introduce themselves. We've got Cynthia, Joshua, and Leslie. Cynthia, how about we start with you? If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do, that would be amazing.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Cynthia. I'm Rwandan. I live in Rwanda. I was born and raised in Geneva in Switzerland. So French is actually my first language. And so I've been living in Rwanda for the past 6 years. And so I spent a few years in the UK before moving to Rwanda. And what I was doing there was studying, and I was doing my master's in documentary making. And so I moved here because I was doing a documentary about the diaspora moving back. And I got here for 2 months thinking that it was going to be enough. It was not. So I went back to London to just free my house sharing. And I left. I moved to Rwanda 4 months after that, thinking that I would just continue my documentary for a few months, and then it's been 6 years now. And so what I realized is that first of all, I had to find ways to make a living. And so I've been wondering, what is it that I can do to actually, what is my value on this market? Trying to make it as a filmmaker, I couldn't see it. And what I realized is that I had people interested in my technical skills, being able to do videos or doing photography. And what I realized is that it was always for the same reason. It was to get exposure. And so I just started researching about that. Like, is it possible? Does it make sense to make content, to craft content as a marketing tool? And at the time in 2014, we're not really talking about content. We're talking about pictures and videos. Having my bachelor degree in communications, that made it easy as well to understand the connection between the two. And so in 2016, I registered my company, Kire Kezo. It means vision in Kinyarwanda. To make it easy, we say Kezo. And so what I would like to do, I would like to be able to assist startups, small companies, and encourage them to use the power of storytelling to get exposure, because I really believe that is when you share the values, what you stand for, what you believe in, that people are going to pay attention. And so what we would like to do is to be able to give that kind of spotlight that people deserve with the companies, with the great things that are happening here in Rwanda.
That's amazing. That's lovely. Thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
Joshua, how about you? If you could just give us a little bit of about a bit of info about yourself and your background, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Joshua. I was born and bred in the UK. I was born in London. I'm Nigerian British, so father's Nigerian, mother's British. And throughout my life, I've always been going back to the motherland. 18 years old, I got the chance to live in East Africa. So lived in Uganda, went to Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya. And in 2019, had the opportunity to build Rwanda's first fully online e-commerce store for women and affordable fashion. The company is called Very Bell. So I helped the client I was working with there, and I just saw a great opportunity to do stuff in Rwanda. I went to Rwanda for the first time in 2008, so I was very aware that it's a very clean, safe, organized country. But for business, I was like, actually, I think it could be really cool to set up a branch of my agency, full service digital agency in Rwanda too. So I came last year, registered it this year. And yeah, I've just been collaborating with creatives, talent, both in Rwanda, Nigeria, UK, and we're creating this ecosystem where we're getting a lot of clients from the West, and then we're training up talent here to work on the project. So it's an out-sharing model. So instead of just trying to find cheap labor, we get really well-paid projects, and then we pay the creatives and talent out here really well too. So yeah, that's what I'm doing out in Rwanda right now, setting and establishing that. And also do work, as I said, in the UK, Nigeria, and clients all over the world.
Thanks, Joshua. I think it's really cool how you make sure that when you do outsource those countries, that they get paid what they deserve, which I think is really, really great, because that usually doesn't happen in most cases. So thanks for that. Leslie, moving on to you. Last but not least, if you could just give us a little bit about your background, that'd be amazing.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Leslie Emenalo. I'm the co-founder and CEO of KoboPay. KoboPay is basically a fintech startup based in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian. Prior to KoboPay, I worked in the banking space. I was focused on customer service, revenue optimization. I also worked in the consultancy services. I worked with the central bank, helping them to find ways to improve and increase the revenue of small-scale businesses in Nigeria. So after that, I decided to set up my own startup with a friend of mine that went to school together. We decided to set up a digital platform where users could access basic financial services without the necessary KYC being requested by the traditional banking system. So in Nigeria, we have over 40 million of our population that do not have access to financial services. So we decided that this is a pain point that someone needs to tackle. And we decided to set up KoboPay to see how we can ease the way people access financial services, especially microcredit.
Thank you, Leslie. Thanks, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Now that you've all introduced yourself, the next question would be, I mean, you guys already touched on it quite briefly, but maybe if you could just go into it a bit deeper, would be what made you decide to go into entrepreneurship with your business? And if you could just give us a little bit more information about your business, what it is exactly that you do, and how it kind of can connect with the locals over there. I'm not sure who wants to go first. Should I just point someone out? Cynthia, how about you? You're smiling there.
When I moved to Rwanda, first I was working as a freelancer. Then I found a job after a few months, and I worked for a communication agency, and I worked there for a year, thinking that after that I would just move back to Switzerland. And so what happened is just that I was jobless, first of all. And I think like having that experience, I really realized how I wanted to do it, because the communication agency where I was working for, there was a huge focus on photography, a bit less in videography, and I think I had already my own ideas. And I think that when you're self-employed, you have that freedom to make decisions for yourself. You have the freedom to choose who you're going to work with. And I really wanted to explore for myself how I could make the connection between creativity and then social media management. And so yeah, I think then after that, you have to build a network. You have to make sure that your work is visible for people to have interest in the first place. You want people to have trust in the work that you do. So yeah, but I think the answer to your question, it was really because I had an experience, a 1-year experience within a communication agency. I saw how it was done, and I thought like I could actually explore my own the things I would like to do. Yes.
The way you just explained all of that, it just sounded so smooth, and like it all came very natural to you. Yeah. Oh, my next question would be, did you face any challenges there? And if so, what would you say were your biggest challenges, apart obviously from being unemployed and trying to create a network? What was, tell us about the more difficult situations there.
It's been a very bumpy road. I think it's actually now that I'm refinding my footing and what I would like to do. I think the first reason to that is because I didn't move to Rwanda with a clear idea of what I was going to do. What I was saying before is that I wanted to do a documentary about the diaspora moving back. And I just thought that I was going to stay for a few months and I'm going to stay with my family. And what I realized is that I wanted to have my own experience. And I thought that it was going to be just for a year. And I think it starts right there. I think to make it easy for yourself, you have to plan a little bit more. You want to come with savings. You want to make your due diligence. And so what has been difficult, I think what is specific to Rwanda is maybe the size of the market. I think that's something that has been tough for me. And I think because of the size of the market, probably the purchasing power. And so sometimes when you would like to offer such services, people, they don't understand the need for it. They will probably go to just the most standard photographer or videographer. When you start talking about adding flavor to your content, people are just not going to listen, because that comes, in their mind, it comes with money. I think the challenge I had at the very beginning, it was just the kind of access that people had to social media, or their understanding of social media, but it's changing every day. Like, this market in Rwanda is really changing fast. And so I think that I can definitely see how it has changed on my side for this. But then other than that, I think the challenge was just everything being new. the country, I want to say the culture. I used to come a lot on holidays, but I think like what is difficult and I experience being a diaspora, moving back, is just that there's so much newness every day, and yet it feels familiar because everybody looks like your family. You look like everybody else. All of a sudden, people know how to pronounce my family name, you know? And so you have to learn how to navigate that, but also navigate the type of, like just navigating this market, the kind of things that you can, the project that you can pitch are not the same project that I could pitch back in London when I was living there. Yeah, I think these were my my main challenges. Yes.
Nice. Well, just to put a little bit of a positive twist to it again, would you, apart obviously from your experience that you gained in London and maybe Geneva as well, what would you say were the opportunities that you were able to get in Rwanda that you know that enabled you to do obviously the job that you did, then you start your business?
Again, I think because the market is small, I think in a way it's been easy to make connections, to hear about projects. Right now we have in Rwanda BAL, the Basketball African League. So it's basically NBA Africa is the first tournament happening on the continent. It is happening in Rwanda, and something like this, being able to be involved with it is kind of nice. And so there are other projects like this, and I think that's the good part of it. Being able to meet different kind of people, being able to grow. I think like with the kind of experience that I have, I've been able to work on projects I think like I would not access back in London or even in Switzerland. And even sometimes, even when you don't have all of the answers, I feel that people sometimes are flexible because they understand how this market works. They understand that sometimes you can have a struggle. I think that what people see that you are really willing, I feel that people can be forgiving. I don't think it would have been the case back in London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Joshua, let's move on to you. What were your deciding factors to go into entrepreneurship, and especially between several countries? Actually, it's not like, because with Cynthia, obviously she's based in Rwanda, whereas with you're focused on quite a few different countries. What was the decision behind it, and what kind of opportunities or challenges did you find there?
Yes, it's kind of a personal thing to answer, but for myself, I come from an entrepreneurial family. So since I was young, my family always involved in business and whatnot. And the reason why I decided to get into entrepreneurship, so that I started my company in 2019. So I was actually raising my two younger sisters, and I needed to basically be able to make money but work from home. So this was pre-COVID, but I actually set up my company to be fully remote. So I had a studio in my back garden, decked it all out. I was studying graphic design at the time, and I really wanted to find a way where I could jump onto the gig economy, do work freelance for people and be able to work from home. And then I had the opportunity to help a friend in Rwanda. She's a friend of mine from the UK, but she's Rwandese. So yeah, I had the opportunity to go to Rwanda, and I was like, do you know what? Let me set something up here so that I can do business and work with people without borders. And as I said, I've been coming back and forth to this country since 2008. So I had some friends that can, sorry, the same who can't hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I knew some people that did coding, some people that did graphic design. So yeah, I just gave them projects both in Rwanda. When I was back in the UK, I was figuring out ways to pay people from the UK to Rwanda. And then when I went to Nigeria in 2019, 2020, the same thing. And I was like, actually, let me try to set this up properly as a company. I was massively inspired by Andela, which kind of has the slogan of talent is everywhere, but opportunities are few. And I was like, do you know what? I get a lot of opportunities by being based in the UK. Let me leverage the opportunities I have and provide people out in Africa to work on these projects too. So I think even being based in Rwanda, I'm very aware the market's small, the purchasing power is not as big as maybe Nigeria, but my mentality's always been, let's be international. And because we're remote, it doesn't really matter where I'm based, it's just where I'm getting the clients from, and then finding the best ways to, probably the biggest issue I have is sending money back and forth and finding the best ways to do it without paying hefty fees. So it's an international mindset, really high level, providing opportunities to as many people as possible.
It's amazing. Great. Do you what, in terms of like the challenges or differences, do you observe there any shifts between the different locations, especially you being based in the UK? Obviously things like time difference are going to be an issue, but now that we've become more digital, it should run much smoother. But what do you feel are the biggest challenges?
I'd actually say time difference for myself is not an issue at all. Right now, UK, Nigeria is exactly on the same time zone. Obviously, when the summer time zone changes in the UK, Nigeria becomes an hour behind, but Rwanda right now is only an hour ahead. So time zone wise, it's pretty much the same. As I said before, it's probably learning how to send money back and forth, how to structure the companies in the right way so you're paying the right taxes. Rwanda is very strict on taxes. I didn't have a clue when setting up a company in Rwanda that you need to set up something called an EBN. The banks are very interesting to deal with. Just the pace of things is a lot different as well. So it's really understanding and accepting the culture. It's finding what's the right way to do things. And to be honest, it's building a strong team. So it's really trying to find the right people when it comes to your accountant, the staff you're working or the people you're training up. Those are the kind of differences. And I'd say there's probably, because Nigeria is a bigger population, there's a lot more talent to find than I'd say in Rwanda. So in Rwanda, it's just kind of changing the model so that you really take people under your wing and can find time to train them on practical projects. But yeah, I'm still learning all these things and kind of learning as I go along. But I'm really, really big personally on putting in systems. So I've got really strong systems in place, but it's just about onboarding the rest of the team so that they can understand them too.
Great, thank you. And then, sorry, just one more question for you, Joshua. In terms of the environment, are there any specific areas that you feel are stronger than others? I mean, you did mention that obviously the Nigerian market's a bit bigger than Rwanda, but what do you think is so unique in those entrepreneurial scenes over there, or are there any major differences that you see?
Yeah, I would actually say the reason why I've come to Rwanda first and properly tried to establish something here rather than Nigeria is the infrastructure of the country. So it's quite well known now, but Rwanda is extremely safe, clean, organized. But again, because the company is fully remote, one of the major things I need is good internet, good electricity, and a space to do my work. And I was in Abuja, I went to the offices that Google used there, and I actually find the facilities in Rwanda are a lot better. Before we had the meeting, I think you saw my internet cut off, but my 4G was still super fast. I was able to continue with the call. And again, in Rwanda, it will cut off maybe for 5-10 minutes and it'll come back on. And that kind of rarely happens. So the actual infrastructure of the country and just the way the country itself seems to want to do things the right way. They've got a very good leader here who wants to do things the right way, wants to welcome foreigners, people doing business. It's the second easiest place to do business in Africa after Mauritius. So just because it has that kind of profile, it made it really attractive to kind of prototype the idea here. And then if it goes well, we'll like fully set up in other countries as well.
Amazing. Great. Thank you, Joshua. Thanks for the insight. That was very amazing. Leslie, let's move on to you. What made you decide to go into entrepreneurship? I think you briefly touched base on that as well, but if you could just expand a little bit and then just talk us through again, if you found it easy or if you found it really challenging, and if so, what the biggest challenges were, or what kind of opportunities you've seen there and that you've obviously used as well.
Okay, I'll say entrepreneurship was, I think that's what I was meant to do. I found it easy to work in that space. From my university days, I didn't come from a poor background, but I had a strict family. So there are some basic things that would have required in school that they wouldn't approve of. So I had to find other ways to make money, basically. So I had to bring in the entrepreneurial spirit. I had to find value in my environment. I found a way to provide e-commerce services in an informal way in school. That helped me in living the life I wanted to live in the university. Yeah. So after I graduated, I started working in the banking space. I was a customer service officer, so I interfaced a lot with customers. And I could see their pain points. I could see the things that they needed done that the traditional banking system were not doing. And because it was a space that I couldn't do anything, there's a laid down policy, there's a laid down structure. I found it frustrating to work in that space. So I left the banking sector and started working with a consultancy firm. And we worked with a partnership with the central bank we were focused on SMEs, disbursing microcredit to small and medium scale enterprises in the country. I did that for a year and decided to set up my own business. So I set up because of frustrations too. Because I always tell people, first of all, I'm a user. When it comes to financial services, I use the service. I see myself as a user first. So I know the problems I face with the existing infrastructure, the existing platforms there. And I decided to set up my own business. Luckily for me, I had a co-founder that is well grounded in software development. We went to the same school together. We practically lived together. So he bought into the vision and we set up in 2018, but we fully launched in 2019. So the vision was to aggregate financial services, whatever financial service you can think of, from bill payments to microcredit to insurance, aggregate it under one platform, break down the ease of use, and find a way to distribute it across the country. I'll give you an instance. There is a place in Nigeria, in the Niger state, that you have to travel over 2 hours before you see the nearest ATM or the nearest bank. So for a country that has over half of its population that are poor, for a country that 65% of the GDP comes from the informal sector, we decided that there is need to drive financial services closer to the home of our users. Instead of having them, for someone that earns below $5 a day, instead of having that person travel over 2 hours to deposit that money in a bank, wasting their time, it's better we drive that service closer to them. So that is the idea behind KoboPay. So we started off, we're based in Abuja. I know most of the tech companies in Nigeria are based in Lagos, but we chose to choose another city where we'll start afresh and focus on the areas that are more important. For the problems we faced, one was building around regulation. So the financial space is a very regulated space in Nigeria and of course in other countries. So getting it right, getting the right regulations, defending our scope and what we intended to do was the major challenge we had. Now, the second challenge is, okay, we started a business. How do we compete? How do we compete with the bigger boys? So the traditional banks, the already existing fintech platforms. What do we offer these people that will make, because we do not have the marketing budget they have. So how do we compete? How do we make ourselves visible that people will prefer to use our service? So we decided to build our company on customer satisfaction. So we work in the financial space. So I believe for every user, what is important to them is to get value. And at any point in time that they don't get value, there should be someone there to explain to them why they didn't get value or what is being done to give them the value they require. So we invested and we are investing heavily in customer service, making sure that our users always get an answer when they need one. We also decided to, because trust is another issue in the financial space. So someone in the rural area will ask you, who is this company? What do they do? So we thought of how to work our way around the trust issue. And we decided to leverage on local businesses. So if you're a user and there's a pharmacy close to your home, For the fact that you patronize our pharmacy for your basic medical needs, you trust them enough to use them for your financial services. So we decided to leverage on businesses. This helped us to penetrate the rural areas and make our services readily available.
I really appreciate how you started out in customer service and you took that whole, view of the customer being the most important part of your company, or your company, being able to thrive, and continuing to make your customer your number one focus. That is, I think, what in these days is really, really important. Customers do not tend to they obviously still care about the product and the service that they're getting, but they care more about the product that they're getting, but care more about the service that they're receiving, because they do tend to value that very, very much. So yeah, that's great. Actually, one more question. What do you think is unique in the entrepreneurial scene, and what it is that you do at the moment?
Okay. Like Joshua said, I think we are the most populous African black country in Africa, or in the world. And with our population comes responsibilities. And with our population comes a lot of challenges. I'll focus on the fintech space, right? The financial services. Like I say, we have 40 million Nigerians that do not have access to your basic financial services, be it our ability to buy airtime, be it our ability to send and receive money, right? And we have over 60% of our adult population living below the poverty line. So we have a huge number of people that are poor in the country, right? And I'll also cite that the micro enterprise, so people in the informal sector, the one-man business, right? These people contribute 65% of our GDP. But this segment gets the least microcredit service. Now, this is because they do not have the necessary KYC needed to approach the traditional banking system. For someone that needs just $100 to increase her stock, can't approach the traditional bank to write a business plan on why he or she needs $100. So there's still a lot that needs to be done in that space. So this is why we entered that space. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, you marry it with the developments that is being achieved in the country. The less developed the country is, the more there are needs to be met. So there's still a lot to be done in the entrepreneurship ecosystem in the country at the moment. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. I think I am done with my questions now. I would like to now hand over the virtual stage to Derek.
Thank you very much, Sabrina, for the interesting round of first questions. And I want to also take the chance to welcome everyone that is joining us from Germany, South Africa, wherever that you're joining us from. You're welcome. For those in Kenya, Karibu Sana. So I will delve deeper into the African markets, right? What's happening there? And I would want to begin with Cynthia. I mean, talking about what you do, right, as a content creator. Do you think, right, first of all, do you think that African content creators are doing enough to tell the actual stories through content creation? And also, what have been the struggles that you have had practically when it comes to creating content in Africa?
That's a very tough question. I think I will talk about Rwanda, but I think like what I'm seeing is that you see a lot of people doing a lot of different things. I think we could do more. I think sometimes we don't realize how far our content could go. It doesn't have to be, the market doesn't, I think Joshua said it before, it doesn't have to be just Rwanda. I think like there's no border these days. And I think we see a consequence of that, especially with the pandemic. I'm involved with a lot of events here in Rwanda. And so before it would just be, in terms of gigs that we get, you will see a lot of people coming for a conference, and maybe they're looking for a photographer or your videographer for a highlight video. But now, because we couldn't have any event, people had to think differently. People had to think creatively. And so that's how we see a lot of businesses going to content creators, to creatives, to photographers, to filmmakers, to create and be innovative. And so I think people see the value in this these days a lot more than before. And I think the way it's happening, the way it's growing is very fast. But now, when it comes to the creatives themselves, I think we have to really believe that now with the social media, we can do it ourselves. We can create a platform for ourselves using social media. Sometimes I feel like we are waiting for the mainstream media here to give us that kind of space, but actually we can create it for ourselves. It's just that we need to understand how social media functions, how to be consistent with the content that you do, understanding how to create engagement with your content, how to create content that is going to resonate with people, that people are going to engage with. And so when you're able to do that, when you're able to grow your audiences, then you have people paying more attention to what you're doing. And I think it's kind of happening a little bit now. But I think sometimes creatives, they don't see the power that they have, and there's a real creative economy that is, that is happening in Rwanda. And that's one that you have to pay attention to.
Interesting. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you shortly with another one. But for the meantime, I'll go to Joshua. Consider the fact that you live between different countries, right? You run your businesses between different countries. Have there been any particular struggles when it comes to the shifts, shifting from one market to another, even within the same continent? Have there been any struggles, and how have you managed some of these struggles?
Main struggles. I think it's been, especially in Rwanda, like I'm more familiar with Nigeria because I was raised by a Nigerian and go to Nigeria, so I'm more used to the culture there. But I think in Rwanda, it was understanding maybe the cultural differences. Rwandans tend to be a lot more reserved, introverted, and they pay a lot of respect to the powers that are above them. So I think having good relationships with key stakeholders, so it's not necessarily just, I've got a great idea for a company, let me execute, but sometimes it's about getting leaders on board, people of influence on board. Rwandans are very image conscious, so sometimes getting influencers and things like that. But I think it's just paying close attention to maybe cultural differences and adapting to that. I think as Cynthia mentioned as well, sometimes when you mention some services, you get the feeling that people don't really understand the value that those services may provide. So a lot of it has been making it very clear. It's kind of a trick that I do, but I make it very clear with the people I'm talking to that I want to be a collaborator. I'm not just here to pitch a product or a service. I'm here to collaborate with you and work with you where you're at. And yeah, I may give a price, but what I give in return is value. So I always try to emphasize the value that I'm going to bring, that I'm on their side, and yeah, just really educate the return on investment that they'll get. It's not just about having a pretty logo, a website, application or whatnot. It's about, if you invest into this, you will see a return on investment in return. So sometimes I do show some case study examples of, this is the work I did for a company in the UK. They invested, I think the first website I did, it was for a French, it was a French guy, Cambodian French guy. We went to Berlin, went to Paris, and we made an e-commerce store for 6,000 euros, and it's now making about $15,000 a week. So it's like that small investment, which may seem like a lot of money, is now making him $15,000 a week. So actually, that was the first website I ever made. So looking back, I really undercharged, but it's just showing, like, if you invest, which may seem like on the surface a lot of money, if you get back in return 10-fold or 100-fold in return, it's a good investment. So as long as I can justify the value that they're going to get in return, doesn't mean I 100% can guarantee it, because that would be lying. But it's just letting people know, like, you're not just spending money for the sake of spending money. You're spending money or investing money to make more money in return.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. I don't know if Leslie's ready. for a question from me. Yes. So I found what you've been very interesting, especially when it comes to fintech, right? And there's one thing that I have also observed and I have gotten to be informed about when, according to research, and it's, the consumer behavior of the African markets, right? Most Africans are quite laid back when it comes to change. And fintech is in the area of, change. You are improving, financial management with technology. How has there been any sort of struggle, or how have you managed that kind of space, right? The reaction from the people, especially when it comes to inclusion and diversity, right? People who you are trying to include in the financial management system. How have you been able to manage the whole consumer behavior towards this fintech, happening in Africa?
So the good thing about change is constant, right? And COVID actually helped. So during the lockdown, people started looking for alternative ways to perform financial transactions. So the banking system closed down. People were not going out, and they needed a faster way to make the transactions. So last year we saw a lot of conversion for our products. But aside that, I would say if you provide a value, that people really need, they'll use your service. Let me give you an instance. Lagos State, I'll use Lagos State. Lagos State has a working force of 7.5 million, right? 7.5 million working in Lagos. 4.5 million work in the informal sector. Now, the informal sector is not, they are not well documented. So this is a this is a one-man business, like maybe an umbrella business, someone just buying and selling stuff. Now, this sector, this person cannot approach a traditional bank to provide a microcredit service, for instance. Now, this is where we come in. We know you're a one-man business. We know your business has a high risk, right? But we are willing to work with you. We are willing to teach you financial literacy. We are willing to help you scale your business from a one-man business to someone that is employing 5 to 10 people. That is value. And that is a positive change. That is not a change that someone will be scared of, because let me put it this way, you really don't have a choice. You need money to expand. And COVID has made it impossible for you to secure funding any other way. So once we focus on service, once we focus on the value we are providing, with little promotion, we've been seeing a lot of positive changes. People getting used to using online services. Prior to COVID, a lot of people were skeptical though. Could this be a scam site? Could these people run away with my money? There's no physical infrastructure. What if tomorrow they run away? What happens to their money? But because we've partnered, yes. So because we've partnered with local businesses, right? For instance, if you become a CoboPay agent, your neighbors know you. It will be easier for them to do business with you because you're living there. You're not going anywhere soon. Before you move out, they'll be aware of you moving out of that vicinity. So because we've leveraged on local businesses, it has made it easier. We've given the ownership of the business to people living in the community. That has been the change for us.
Interesting. And so for all of you, are there any special trends you see happening in the continent? From now to the next, say, 5 years, any special trends you see happening? Cynthia, you can start off if you're ready.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's very specific to what I'm working on, but I see people in general investing in their branding, not just content, but Joshua was talking about logos. I feel like now there's people are aware that they have to appear a certain way on their website, on their social media, in their content. For example, here in Rwanda, we're trying to promote this place as a high-end destination, and we have a lot of lodges. And for example, a couple of years ago, I would just see these videos made with a phone, but now they're really investing in high-end production. production value is key. And so I definitely see that happening. I think, as Leslie said, I think the pandemic is kind of working on our favor. I think it depends on the kind of business, but I think it's bringing a lot of changes. I think now we have to think global. Like now that people have accepted this idea that now, even more so because of the pandemic, that meetings can happen on Zoom. We don't have to see each other, like we don't have to meet in person. We can actually do things also between countries. And so these are things that have really been palpable in the kind of film that I am, yes.
Interesting. Over to Joshua, please. We can hear
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So could you repeat the question? Just cut off, sorry.
Yes, so I was just asking, are there any special trends you see happening in various African markets, for example, in the next future?
I think a big thing I'm noticing is Fintech. I think people are really interested in how to send money quickly, more efficiently. Obviously, because I've got the connection with Nigeria, I've been aware of what the central bank's done there to kind of make things a bit more difficult. I get they want to keep the money within Nigeria, but people are finding very creative ways of sending money back and forth. I think in the crypto world, Nigeria is the biggest sender of cryptocurrency. So I think, the area of like fintech, blockchain, cryptos is very, very interesting. And what's interesting about the continent in general is that it's still not fully digital. Like a lot of people are still carrying these techno phones and they haven't fully upgraded to smartphones yet. So that means there's a lot of people that are going to become online. So what I'm doing in Rwanda in particular with the local market is focusing on e-commerce. So it's really trying to jump on that wave because there is going to be a lot more digital consumers. And these infrastructures are very much in their infantile early stages. So it's kind of seeing things that are quite flourishing, well established in the West, and it's seeing how we can bring them here by doing it in a very creative way. So something I do while I'm in Rwanda is I invoice people through WhatsApp, because I find a lot more people use WhatsApp as opposed to emails and stuff. So it's kind of adapting to the market, seeing what people are already doing here, and then seeing how can we adapt things for the context of the market that we're in.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Over to you, Leslie.
Okay, I'll come from a different perspective, right? I'll say Africa is being noticed now, right? Before, when you mention Africa in the global space, what people think of is aid. What people think of is maybe tourism, the wildlife. But now we are positioning ourselves to play a major role. Now we can boldly say that that we are going to drive global development in the next couple of decades, right? The investors are beginning to notice Africa, right? When we started, one of the issues we had was the identity of being a Nigerian company. So for the fintech space, where you try to talk to global partners, like Joshua mentioned, the issue he had with sending and receiving money, we saw that issue and we wanted to tackle that head on in our earlier stage. But you visit some companies' website and you see that as far as you're a Nigerian company, you can't even start a conversation with them. So, but that narrative is being changed. People are starting to do business because they can't afford to miss out on doing business or investing in Africa. So that is the shifts I foresee. I see a lot of FDI coming into the continent. I see a lot of foreign businesses putting up structures in Africa. Some months ago, it was Twitter in Ghana, it was Facebook in Nigeria, and more companies are putting up structures here because we now matter. Not that we didn't matter before, but our stories are being told now. People are beginning to see the success stories of startups. People are saying exits. People are saying acquisitions. We are building unicorns in the continent. So that has been the positive trend in the continent.
Okay, just so for Leslie, I mean, what do you see happening in the future for the fintech industry in Nigeria, considering things like, just like you mentioned, discrimination because of the country, the consumers' behavior in the African markets. Obviously, we know Nigeria has one of the biggest markets in West Africa, right? And what do you see happening in the future for the fintech industry? Is it going to attract more competitors? Is it going to keep growing, or do you think there's a future beyond that?
So it is a good thing this is happening in the same time with the crypto boom, right? We are seeing a lot of decentralized finance. The fintechs, I don't think the regulatory bodies can hold on to the fintech platforms anymore. It's either Is either the make changes to accommodate us, or they become extinct, because decentralized finance has come to stay. Someone can send money from Europe to Nigeria in the next 5 seconds. I get it, right? And just move to an agent and pick up the cash. That is where we're going to. We believe that soon we might do away with the traditional banking system. So why do I need to spend, like Joshua says, spend huge amounts of money in commission, just paying salaries to my staff in Rwanda, my staff in Nigeria? I can just send them via a crypto wallet, and they approach an agent and make a withdrawal in whatever fiat they choose to. So you're going to see a boom in the next few years. More countries are going to emerge. Now we are just talking about a few African countries, but there are people doing big things in Uganda. I met a fintech company in Uganda doing a fantastic job over there. There are people in Ghana and other countries. So even Nigerian startups are also expanding. For us, we are looking at the sub-Saharan Africa. How can we facilitate intra-country trade? I should be able to send money to someone in Ghana and they receive it instantly. I should be able to come to Rwanda and use my Naira card in Rwanda and make payments without any issue. So there's more to be done, and I expect big players coming into the industry.
And then just to confirm, does the government in Nigeria have any regulations yet set up for fintech, or they are still in the process?
They do. Okay. For fintech, they do, but for crypto, not yet.
Okay.
But for fintech, they have a regulatory framework for that.
Okay, very well. Okay, Cynthia. So let's delve a bit more into your industry. So what do you see happening, for content creation in Africa? I mean, most importantly, just as Leslie said, maybe now our stories are being told better, but who are telling our stories? Are they telling the right stories? Right? What is the future for content creation, for photography, videography in Africa?
I think the future of content is going to be, the future of content is definitely on social media, but then what you have to understand about social media is that it's a two-way street. It's not that you come and you do a story and you act as if it was mass media where you're just telling your truth and that's it. Like, you really need to be able to apply social listening. So you need to take into consideration where people are heading, and then very being clear on your audience. You have to be conscious of building niche audiences. It doesn't work when you think about your content thinking that you're going to try to please everybody. It's not going to resonate with anyone. And so that shift is a struggle sometimes when you are working with clients that are doing this for the first time. And so, but it's happening. I think what I see with content creators here, with creatives in general, is that once they have found what is working, when they have a clear, when they're very clear with a sense of purpose and what they would like to do and how they can be, what's their value, on this scene that we have in Rwanda, then they're doing big. And sometimes as creatives, like not just entrepreneurs, but as a creative, sometimes you have to understand that if you would like your stories, because we're really talking about stories here, if you would like your stories to be out there, sometimes it does require you to do the content yourself. I'm not saying working for free, but sometimes you don't get the money straight away. So what is it that you stand for? What is it that you believe in? And so sometimes these are things that you have to do first on your own platform. And then sometimes even when you're doing for clients, again, sometimes at the beginning, when people don't have a clear sense of what you do, I think Joshua said before that you need to have leaders on board. You want to have those connections to actually get gigs. And so something that I've been doing is working as a sponsor and my contribution is in kind. So I still have ownership of the content. I'm not getting the money, but that exposure at some point is going to work out. And so when people do realize that, you see a lot of people just doing a lot of things. And I think like now, what I see with clients now is that you have a lot of clients being conscious that they want to work with content creators on the field. They want to work with random content creators, talents, creatives. They see the disconnect because everything is online. And so if you kind of, if you tell your stories from your perspective as a Westerner, and sometimes I do see a lot of white serialism. Sometimes I've been working with a lot of charity organizations, and so people don't accept those things anymore. So that's why you see the scene really shifting.
Interesting. Joshua, you've been to Lagos, Rwanda, if I'm right, London, and then all over the place in Africa, Burundi, and the likes. What do you think is, or how do you think the future looks like for entrepreneurs in Africa overall?
I think there's a massive shift. Even just being in Rwanda, I've met so many people from the diaspora returning back to Africa. I think it's probably, well, for me, I've heard it a lot of times now, but I think what a lot of people say is that back in Europe, back in America, things are very saturated there. So if you are going to start something new, there's like 1,000 of your types of organizations already, where a country like Rwanda in particular, it's like a blank canvas. It's like there's so many things that haven't been set up and established here. So I think it's a very attractive option for people in the West and around the world, because it really gives you an opportunity to pioneer something, to work with people that may not even know about these industries, which are quite normal to ourselves. So I just see it as a very exciting opportunity for people to establish and set up something new, and to really feel useful. Because for some people that have had the opportunity to grow up in the West, I know my dad made a lot of sacrifices to make that happen. It really gives us a chance to give back, work with people that haven't had such opportunities, and really make some things happen. There's a lot of people I tell here that if you just make your money here, there'll be no need for you to dream of going to the West and doing all these things there, because you'll have so much money that you'll be welcomed with open hands wherever you go in the world. So focus on where you're at. Don't see the grass is green on the other side. Make great things happen that provide great value. And the world is yours. I think we're coming to an age now where the world is just getting smaller. So the countries are developing at such a rate that it's becoming where there's not too much difference between places in Kigali to places in London. Obviously, London is a lot more developed than countries in general, but the gap is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The Africa that they show us on TV in the West is not really the Africa as it is in reality these days.
It's improved, generally. After this session, we are going to read out some questions that people have. So if you have any questions for any of the panelists, please write them in the chat box. And before I get to my last question, I want to ask my big question, right? Do you guys think Africa is ready, is still being ready, or not ready for this whole shift? Because you guys are coming in with like disruptive models. You are coming in with, thought-provoking insights for the continent. Do you think the continent is ready, is being ready, or not ready for this? I'll start with Leslie.
Okay, let me put it this way. It's long overdue, right? We should be way past where we are now. If we had, I don't like to talk about politics, but somehow as a startup, we have to talk about politics, because what the person in power does affects your business. So I'll put it this way. There's nothing that you can do, there's no innovation that you can do as a private company without the help of the government in power, right? I would say that if the policies had been put in place on time or prior to our time, some of these innovations would have been there. So it's not a question of Africa being ready. We were born ready, actually. It's a question of, do we have the political will? Do we have the political will to make things happen? The people are ready. As you can, like Joshua said, you see Nigeria being one of the highest consumers of crypto,
Yep.
right? So we've been ready. You see people, Nigerians doing business on Amazon and whatnot. So if we have the political will to put the framework in place, I'll give you an instance. Something happened with a startup in Lagos, one of the go-karters. They started investors. Government shut down their business. Not direct, but a policy shut down their business. I had this conversation the last was in January. The government needs to work with in different sectors to make a policy finding that sector. So if you want to make it about the things, work with stakeholders in the fintech space to make a policy that will not stifle their growth. So to answer your question,
Hello, Leslie. I think probably his network is against him now. Okay, maybe for the time being, we can move to Joshua. You can share your thoughts on this question whilst we hope that Leslie bounces back, in time. So yeah, over to you, Joshua.
Yeah, just following from what Leslie said, I think it goes back to that quote. It's like, I think people are ready. It's just the opportunities, and the thing that's frustrating for me, even being out here, is I can see that there's almost unnecessary blockages from people fully being able to do things. So, but I'm seeing as time moves forward, these things are becoming less and less. So I think parts of Africa are ready, some parts are more ready than others, but all in all, it's heading in a really positive direction. And I just feel like it's a responsibility for diasporans to, when they do come back, to really leverage the opportunities that they can bring here. It's like just simple things. Wherever I am in this country, I've got 4G because I carry my iPad, which has a modem in it. So if I'm with my team and the internet cuts off, hey, use my internet too. Or I don't know, maybe transport's an issue, or some things which really aren't a big deal for me. It's just like, hey, how can we use what's easy or simple for us, for others as well, just so they can have the same or similar opportunities to ourselves. So I do think Africa is ready, but I just think it's going to take a lot more help from the government or from just those in general that can give back to push it ahead even more forward.
Certainly, Africa is really ready. Okay, so we move to Leslie to complete what he started before we move to Cynthia to finalize.
So sorry about that. I had an issue with my network. So basically, I think Joshua just said it. Africa is ready. We just need more involvement of the government. There are some things we can't innovate around. There are some basic infrastructures that are the primary job of the government to provide. In the fintech space, we are lucky because I think the Nigerian government or the central bank went a step further to set up a robust infrastructure for us to try. So when we started, we had an existing infrastructure to build upon. So that should be replicated in other sectors to help drive innovation.
Very well. Thank you very much, Leslie. Cynthia,
thank you.
Do you think Africa is ready?
I like what Leslie was saying before, we're born ready. I think especially everything that has happened with the pandemic, how the West thought that Africa was going to handle and what actually happened. And I think, yes, I think we do have what it takes. Sometimes it's about believing in ourselves, but then we talked about the government. It's about how we can make sure that we attract the right investors to our respective countries, and how also you retain the talent. You know, it's one thing like to have more people coming, but how do you make sure that you retain all of the talents that we have already brought here?
Very interesting. Thank you very much for these thought-provoking insights. And my last question would be, I mean, there are lots of people from the diaspora wanting to enter various markets in Africa, right? And even if you look into Africa, I mean, the opportunities are endless. it's a continent with, I mean, the highest birth rate, right? So in the next coming years, we'll keep having more younger, generations, in Africa than the rest of the world, most of the rest of the world. So it's a big market on its own. What are some of the things or tips that you give to people who would want to enter various markets in Africa, either as diasporans or either as Africans living in Africa wanting to enter into entrepreneurship or start their own businesses and projects? What tips and advice would you give them? Let's start with Joshua.
I think a big piece of advice would be don't come here as a lone soldier. I've just been really fortunate that I came here as a teenager. I've got family in Nigeria. So just the relationships I've had since 2008, that's really enabled me to open the door and operate in these countries. So I'd really, really recommend, if you aren't lucky to have such connections, connect with people like myself. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn or search me on Google and just get in touch with people, because I think we're more than willing to help pave the way, because there's like small things that I've been around now for 6 months, and there's just small things, how to deal with the local transport, people, money, which bank, which ATM to use to take out your money. There's small little tips and tricks we know that can just pave the way and make things a lot easier for yourself. So my biggest advice would be reach out, feel free to ask questions, and I'm sure, like myself, others would be willing to share what they know too.
So reach out and build your connections in the continent before starting anything there. It's going to help. Okay, Cynthia.
I'd also say just quickly, sorry, just say one thing as well quickly, connect with locals, because a big thing that's helped me to get more clients, even being out here, is my model is I want to collaborate with locals. So I don't know everyone in this country, but there's locals here that do know people. So connect with locals that are doing similar things to yourselves as well.
Very well. Thank you very much, Joshua. Over to you, Cynthia.
Yes, I'm not muted. So I was going to say, first of all, ensure that you move with savings. I want to say just to have a number so that you have an idea of how much to save. You don't want to jump on the first opportunity. You want to have the time to actually explore and make sure that you're making wise decisions. If you can, travel back and forth first, and travel when it's not summer or Christmas. Spend the time here when it's not busy, and then you make yourself the time to actually meet people that are like-minded, people that maybe they maybe run the kind of businesses that you would like to run. Maybe if you can, I think it's possible now with the pandemic, but working remotely for the same employer, so that you make your transition easier. Build a network. I think everything that Joshua said, I think you want to meet like-minded people, but also people that have made the move, and to ask all of this small kind of tips. First, I've been living with my family for 4 months, but after I've been living in house sharing, and I had no idea how I could find a house sharing. My cousins were just not doing that. So sometimes small things like that can help, but also I think he said local people, but yeah, people that really run the type of business that you would like to run, and also understanding that you coming from abroad and maybe not being as exposed, there are things that you don't fully understand, even if it's your heritage. How is it like to actually live here, run a business, subcontracting people? You want to hear all of these experiences. Then you want to evaluate the playing field. I mentioned before that there are some jobs that I did where I would be a sponsor, and I will offer my services as a sponsor in kind, just because I wanted the exposure. But I think what it does is that it gives you an idea of how it gives you an idea of the industry. And so, and it helps also having case studies, because when you actually meet potential clients, what you would like to say is that there are some jobs that you have done in the country. You don't want to talk about what you've done in the West, because you will have people saying, but that was back in London, that was back where you were before, and that has nothing to do with this market. And so you really want to give yourself the opportunity. You want to put yourself on the radar. So it doesn't have to be just offering your services, but sometimes it's just having an active presence on social media. In my case, for the type of jobs that I do, I'm very cautious of my presence on Instagram, but then LinkedIn is one that I see being very effective these days. Rwandans are very active on Twitter. That's where you want to be as well. And not just, sharing what you've been eating, but actually giving value. And you want to be involved in the conversations that are related to your industry. And so that people, they see what you are about. I had a few notes here. You want to be able to highlight your uniqueness. I think you can find a lot of people doing the same things that you do, but why are people going to come to you? And I think for that, you need to have an understanding of your why. I know it's very cheesy, but I think it really helps. It helps in the long run because it's going to get difficult. It's going to be a bumpy road for sure. And you want to have something where you know that even when it's hard, this is the reason why I'm doing this. This is why I'm broke these days, but one day it's going to pay off. And yes, that's it.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. Thank you very much for pointing out to us. Over to you, Leslie. And in addition to what you're going to say, the advice, there's a question here that's directed to you from Andisa Yako, saying, how do you plan to fund your company's growth and expansion since there's such a huge need for financial inclusion? So you can just answer it all together in addition to the advice you have for people when you various markets in Africa.
Okay, I think Joshua made a lot of points on what I wanted to say, the advice I had, but I'll break it down into three. I always ask people why, what do you want to do, and how do you want to do it, right? You need to answer these three questions before you come to Africa, right? You need to understand why you want to do it. If it's just for the money, stay back. Because if it's just for the money, why it's funny, but you need to have a more personal conviction than money to work in the African ecosystem. It's hard. It's hard doing business in Africa. You have a lot of things fighting against your innovation. You have the regulatory bodies, you have the cultural differences, you have a lot fighting. So if you don't have something more concrete than money, you're going to spend your time getting frustrated. So when you answer that question, you talk about the what do I want to do? Which sector do I want to go into? And how do I want to do that? So when you understand these three things, it's better you connect with people already doing that in the country, right? First of all, get to talk to people, get to understand their pain point, get to know how they started. If they can give you a few pointers, do that. Then don't just come to Africa to stay. I think, like she said, a couple of visits. Come spend a week, 2 weeks, a month, understand the ecosystem, ask yourself the same question again, do I want to stay? Don't just up and leave. So my final advice is whatever amount you think is enough to move to Africa, triple it. Because it's a different ball game. So what the procedure you feel will take you 1 week might end up taking a month. Yeah. The application you think might take a day might take several days. So in all, it's fun working in the system where against all odds you get to beat whatever obstacle you have, and it's fun working in Africa. I'm not trying to discourage anyone, but you should be prepared before you move down to Africa to start up a company. Now, for the question about funding, yes, our space is a sector that requires huge amount of funding. For instance, to set up the next level of license we are trying to get from our regulatory body, give or take, you're being asked to have a share capital of over 2 billion naira. That's over between $3 to $5 million, right? Just to secure a certain license needed to operate. So it is a sector that involves huge capital outlay. Since inception, we've been bootstrapping. last year we wanted to raise our seed round. We were in discussion with some angel investors, some VCs, then COVID happened. Because of the uncertainty, a lot of people had to pull back and say, you know what, let's wait and see how the whole pandemic pans out. So how are we trying to get the funding needed to scale, needed to reach the number of people we are looking to reach? We are looking to get raised. We're a for-profit company. We are not an NGO. So definitely we are going to raise our seed round, Series A, Series B, and Series C and whatnot. So that is how we intend to raise the necessary funding. At the moment, we also apply to, what do you call them, developmental partners, requesting for grants and also notes needed to scale our business. I hope that answers the question.
All right. Thank you very much. And thanks to Cynthia, Joshua, Leslie for the great insights. And thanks to everyone for staying on. We are going to get to the end of today's program. And before we do so, I'll hand over to my co-moderator, Sabrina, to help us wrap up for today. My name is Derek, and thank you very much for sticking and staying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Again, thank you everyone for joining today's session. As I mentioned before, if you guys do have any questions or you want to get in touch with us directly, or Star Africa, or one of our panelists, you do have all of the links in the chat box where we can send them out afterwards as well. But we would love to hear from you. We would love to see you at our next events.